You ask, you plead, you repeat the same requests, hoping and waiting, only to feel like you were talking to the ceiling. So many believers live in this cycle, frustrated by a daily reality of prayers that produce absolutely nothing. When heaven seems silent, we tend to assume God simply said no, but powerless prayer is rarely proof of a divine denial. Usually, it points to a process failure on our end. We are missing a step. The modern church often groups every spiritual resource under one generic label, power. We treat the kingdom like a vague, mystical force, but God's resources are incredibly precise. There is Zoe water, Zoe spices, Zoe oil, and Zoe incense. They are not the same thing, and they do not perform the same function. Confusing these resources is like a mechanic pouring gasoline directly into an engine oil reservoir. The car has the right parts, the fluid is energy, but because the wrong resource is applied to the wrong place, the system breaks down entirely. Prayer operates by a specific set of spiritual mechanics. It is heaven's appointed furnace. There is a strict sequence of spiritual life: conversion, heat, and release. You have to gather the right materials, apply the right catalyst, and reach the required temperature. Religious noise will not change your circumstances. Emotional panic will not move mountains. You have to master the actual spiritual mechanics of prayer if you want to alter the atmosphere around you. The entire system begins with the foundational raw material, Zoe water. This is the active, flowing river of spiritual life within the recreated human spirit. It provides your inner strength, your ability to stand in adversity, and the joy of your salvation. When Zoe water is restricted or blocked by disobedience or unbelief, everything in your walk becomes heavy. Your prayer life feels dry. Basic obedience feels incredibly burdensome. Temptation easily overpowers you. Before you can engage the enemy, that internal flow of life must be restored. Having life in you is essential, but water alone is not the final form required for miracles or breakthrough. To become a usable weapon, that water must be converted into the next resource. It must become spiritual spices. The catalyst for that conversion is the why. Purpose is what converts the resource. You cannot simply ask God for life or strength. You must attach your request to the specific works of Jesus. You pray, "Father, give me life in my spirit to fulfill the teaching ministry of Jesus. Give me strength to fulfill the healing works of Jesus." Vague, disconnected prayers like, "Lord, bless me," or "Lord, help me," lack this mechanism. They sound pious, but because they are entirely detached from the mission of Christ, the raw material is never converted. The system stalls. Heaven's resources are strictly reserved for heaven's purposes. God does not fund our selfish ambition or underwrite our emotional survival. Raw spiritual life only becomes a tangible kingdom asset when it is bound directly to the precise purposes of Jesus Christ on the earth. Once you have aligned your purpose and the water has become spices, your prayer is still not finished. Spices sitting in a bowl do not automatically rise to heaven. They require an ignition source. The spices must be subjected to the intense heat of effectual, fervent prayer. When aligned purpose meets fire, praying with faith, travail, and in the Spirit, a reaction occurs. The material transforms into spiritual incense. This incense is a literal, tangible substance. It actively alters the atmosphere, fortifies your peace, and produces real spiritual authority. We see the physical reality of this substance in the ministry of Jesus. When the woman with the issue of blood reached out and touched his garment, Jesus felt virtue leave his body. That was not a metaphor. Something real, heavy, and substantive flowed out of him. Fervency is not measured by the volume of your voice. It is measured by your ability to reach the exact spiritual temperature required to forge that virtue and release it into your circumstances. Because virtue and incense are real substances, they obey the laws of spiritual economics. They can be depleted. They can be wasted through unbelief, godless chatter, and careless fellowship. If it can flow out, it must be monitored and conserved. Jesus monitored his virtue rigorously. Before opening the ears of the deaf and speech-impaired man, he pulled him aside, looked up to heaven, and travailed. he released a deep sigh. He was intentionally replenishing his spiritual reserves before deploying them. If the Son of God refused to treat spiritual resources casually, the modern church must rot its entitlement. We cannot expect miracle power to flow from careless, dry, and unfocused habits. So when you pray and nothing happens, do not quit. Do not accuse God. Run a strict diagnostic on the system. Check the water. Is there hidden disobedience blocking the flow? Check your purpose. Are you praying for God's will or your own comfort? Check the heat. Are you praying fervently or just reciting words? Enter the furnace right now. Receive the water by repenting of any treason in your heart. Convert that water by actively attaching your desires to the works of Jesus. And then apply the heat. Pray until inner noise quiets down. Pray until fear loses its grip. Pray until peace guards your heart. You are a deputized steward of heaven's spiritual economics. When you understand the precise mechanics of prayer, when you gather the life, align the purpose, and supply the heat, you make the works of Jesus physical and touchable on the earth. Generating this power is only the first step. Tomorrow, we are covering the next critical phase in our series. God gave you power. Are you wasting it? Sustained revival depends on our ability to steward and protect the resources heaven has forged. I'll see you there.